and Sergio side of the ball than the offensive side of the ball, where they lose some sexy names like Shipley and Colt McCoy. Now, if you want to see some athletes just ball and be in Gainesville later today, it's the blue, it's the orange. They tell me they're complementary colors, by the way. They're going to get after it. No Tebow, and they do have some losses on the offensive line as well as on defense, and it makes the Gators more of a question mark than they've been the last 2 or 3 seasons. But the current folks, they're optimistic.
I think this team can be great. I mean, we've lost quite a few great players, but there's going to be some great players filling in their spots, and I think this team can be really great.
We got a lot of speed. Even though we had young guys, they're very talented. Great all around the board. Defensive line, linebackers, and great DBs.
Well, we can do real good. We got a lot of guys that's sitting out right now due to injuries, and but them guys are playing a lot of games, so they got a lot of leadership, and been playing in the big games here, so they know how we can win games on Saturday. And by the time September 4th comes around, we'll be ready. We got 2 days coming up, and we got an off season to get bigger, better, and stronger, and just learn the game a lot more.
Let's take a look at the Gators' schedule. They're going to travel to Tuscaloosa, where they haven't won since 1998. They're also going to have to go up to Tallahassee. They'll host LSU and then the annual game in Jacksonville against Georgia. So all things considered, looking at the schedule, looking at the losses, are the Gators vulnerable this year? Let's send it over to my friend Chris Fowler and the gang, who visited the studio earlier.
So the Gators lose the most decorated college quarterback in history, a folk hero. By the way, 4 top juniors declare early and come out, and yet they just reload. They bring in a recruiting class. Even Urban Meyer stepped back and said, with all due modesty, this is an unbelievable recruiting class, but those guys obviously can't be counted on too much in 2010. So what about this being a year of vulnerability for the Gators and an opportunity for the other teams in the league?
I think they're very vulnerable, and I understand they've had an unbelievable recruiting class, and they've put together a couple of great recruiting classes here the last couple of years. But in the end, to me, you cannot ignore what they've just lost. And whether it's Charlie Strong calling the defense, Billy Gonzalez as your passing game coordinator on offense, Tim Tebow, one of the great competitors to ever play college football, your top 3 wide receivers, leaders like Marquise Pouncey, Brandon Spikes, some of those juniors, Carlos Dunlap, Joe Hayden, Major Wright. The list goes on and on and on. A lot of questions. Playmakers have to step up. Leaders have to assert themselves. A lot of questions, Mayday, for this Florida team.
I don't think there's a lot of questions when you can recruit like Urban Meyer's recruited, not only this past year, but every single year that he's been there. John Brantley's going to be the quarterback. He'll be taking more snaps under center. But I think the key to this football team, they're going to run the ball more this year. You've got Jeffrey Dents, Chris Rainey, Emmanuel Moody, that offensive line. And here's another key. They only leave the state of Florida 3 times. Twice to Tennessee, Tenney and Vandy, then they go to Alabama. So everybody else is in the state of Florida, and I think that's key for a young football.
Well, you can get hit in the mouth in the state of Florida or wherever they play for that matter, but I think anytime you take a team and you lose a starting quarterback, the offensive line, there are going to be question marks along the offensive line. And, oh, yeah, you want to go under center a little bit more and mix some things up. Who's your go-to receiver right now? Who's going to carry the load at running back for Florida? These are recruits that are 5-star guys coming in. But experience goes a long way, and they play in the toughest conference in the country. Florida, vulnerable this season.
And as great as a team as you can be in the SEC, you're going to have that narrow margin for error in that conference. You have to be lucky. You have to survive a 2 or 3 or 4 games maybe where you just make that play, and that's where Tebow was able to step in, and different leaders were, I don't know. I mean, they do need to run the ball more with some running backs. Yes. Remember they get into Alabama, the showdown game? I mean, from memory, I think Alabama was shocked afterward that the Gators running backs carried the ball like 2-3 times in the game. That was it.
This is an offense that's supposed to look a lot more like 2006. John Brantley is not Tim Tebow. On 3rd and 3, you're not going to see him in the gun single wing plowing ahead forward. They're going to try to use 2 different quarterbacks. John Brantley will play the role Chris Sleek played in 2006. But Mayday, I look at the schedule and I see at Tennessee, at Alabama, LSU at home, Georgia in Jacksonville, at Florida State. And I understand that you think Florida's going to be favored in all those games but one. To me, you can have some of the best recruits, best athletes, but inexperience to me is the great equalizer. These high school students playing in front of 5,000 people in high school, a little bit different when you go to Knoxville. You play against a $115 in the crowd, or Doak Campbell
Or Baton Rouge, where you had such a fun time.
It was amazing.
I know they don't have to play in Baton Rouge this year.
Thank you.
He's going to visit some places that he's never been before throughout the season and in the SEC and in those environments in which you just described. I think Florida's success will hinge on whether or not he performs in those situations.
And Urban Meyer just back on the sidelines looking like it was like nothing ever happened.
It's different.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened?
Let's play.
Thanks, guys. And still to come.